not true, they know it's not true. It don't matter what's true. It matters the story they tell when you're gone. It don't matter what's true. It matters the story they tell. It matters the story they tell.
There's truth and there's untruth. But if you stick to the truth, even against the whole world, you're still not there.
Hello, it's June 2023, and I'm going to be talking about something that some people have been talking about for a long time, and more people are talking about, and that is truth. So what is truth? Truth is something that, for example, a group can or do agree upon. But does that mean that it's actually true? So then what is truth? Truth can have an agenda, could be based on lies, it could be based on facts. So then what are facts? Facts, we would assume, for example, that it's supported by evidence. However, facts, as well as evidence, can be circumvented. What am I talking about? Well, facts can be ignored, or artificial, fake, untruthful facts can be created. So then, what is reality? If truth, facts, evidence can be all created, and it could be something that has nothing to do with reality. So we go back to what people accept. For example, people have confused practical sciences with theoretical sciences. What are practical sciences? Well, practical sciences have given us buildings, something that has been created, for example, with our hands, given us vehicles, the combustion engine, cell phones, computers, all these things. These are all examples of practical sciences. Theoretical sciences, which includes theoretical mathematics, the liberal arts, theoretical pseudoscience of psychology, and all this other kind of stuff, that's all theory. A theory is something that's not proven. People in today's world have accepted theoretical, I'm going to use a descriptive, nonsense as factual. You can prove, for example, using a theory that you can hang an elephant by its tail from a fig leaf over a cliff. Doesn't mean that it has any basis in reality. I've highlighted over many years the studies made famous by Julia Shaw, how easy it is to implant false memories. People can implant their own false memories, for example, through glorification of someone or an event. They romanticize. That's a big one, because romanticizing something comes from emotions, and it creates emotions, and other people latch onto it. Now, in the corporate world, it's common knowledge that you never make a decision based on emotions. But yet we see society, most people in society, making conclusions based on emotions. Conclusions founded on what? They believe. And to believe is to make an uninformed conclusion. And we see this all the time. This really questions reality. Perception plays a role in all this as well, how people perceive and interpret, and they make uninformed conclusions based on a limited knowledge base. And that could be, for example, I've highlighted how police computer databases can have false, inaccurate, or misunderstood information. It's not just limited to police computer databases. It could be, for example, medical records. You have, for example, one doctor who makes an uninformed conclusion about someone, and they write that down, and that becomes part of their medical records. We also see this, for example, in the education system, permanent records, specifically public school, where we have a teacher or even a principal making comments, and that record follows them for the rest of their life. So it's not just limited. I'm not just picking on any one particular profession in this example. And then other people come to accept that, and then we have, for example, the telephone game, where information is being related to one person to the next person to the next person, and by the time it reaches a certain point, it's nowhere close to reality. So, what is truth? You can assume that truth is founded on facts, facts being supported by independent evidence. Now, independent evidence can speak for itself, and I've done for many years, for example, with my efforts, simply just showing independent evidence to support my story. Sometimes I don't even say anything. I just simply present independent evidence. For example, audio recordings, screenshots from transcripts and other sources. Let that speak for itself. But then we have perception, interpretation. And then interpretation then is founded on people's limited knowledge base, assumptions. And I've highlighted over the years how busybodies in today's world are a big problem. And a lot of times, most times, they are the cause of a lot of unnecessary hardship for individuals or even groups. We see how easy it is for people to comply with whatever they're told. For example, we use the Asch, Milgram, and even the Stanford experiments. We have other examples that show how people will adhere to, as an example, their oppressors, the Stockholm Syndrome. There's a lot of things at play when it comes to truth. And I've said a lot, and I highlight, for example, people who call themselves truthers and even freedom fighters. They don't care what the truth is, it's what they want the truth to be. And when you challenge someone, for example, on why 4 individuals are going through hardship, trying to understand their rationale, knowing the story, and they end up blocking you because you're asking questions that they know that leads them to a different, more factual truth. We see how people can cherry pick, romanticize, and then things go way out of proportion. That's the world we live in. So what is truth? Everyone's seeking the truth. And everyone's convinced that, well, we can never find out the absolute truth, which is a lie in itself. And the big problem with that, especially among truthers, is they'll say, well, I'm going to go filter through this information and that person and everything else, and I'm going to pick out basically what works for them. And the problem there is, if something doesn't work for them or fit a narrative that they want, or even a belief that they have, they set it aside. The whole world's a stage and everyone's an actor, and there's a proper answer to that. And if you know the answer to that, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. And as with any actor, you play a role. And that role is based on fictional truths, fictional facts, and even fictional evidence. Now, when it comes back to, I'm going to go back to talking about evidence, independent evidence specifically. You can present that, and again, we go back to people's interpretations and everything else. And it really depends on if people want to accept evidence. We see, for example, how in courtrooms, evidence can be cherry-picked and sometimes circumvented or completely ignored, and made-up evidence is presented. I just want to give you something to think about. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share.
You hear the past stories, and you see when a cop does something wrong, you see the unions, and you see the politicians stand up for the officer. You don't see anyone stand up for the citizen. They just become a statistic, a number that you're going after. That's what you do in policing. You're trying to do what keeps you out of trouble from all the problems that are internal. Like, I never feared the streets, but I constantly feared other officers. What they fear is that we can get away with whatever we choose to get away with. The laws are to the point where anybody can be locked up pretty much for any time. Like, one of the cases in the Senate in Maryland that I testified to was how you can't actually drive a car legally. I mean, it'd be impossible. No one can get this car from here to the end of the street completely legally.
So those are going to arrest you.
At any point in time, so the ones that are afraid. And that's our standard in policing, is fear. So if you're afraid, you can do whatever you want. That's the legal standard. So if I am afraid that you can take my life, then I'm allowed to take yours legally.
Where does the fear come from then? Like in the guys that do have the fear, it sounds like you think that a lot of them, or most of them do.
Where was he? I'm not afraid to say it. They were the people that were afraid before they came in, and just because you got a badge and a gun doesn't suddenly mean you're not afraid.
Listen to this and write it down if you can't remember it. You're never going to outgrow warfare. You simply must learn to fight. I hear people say to me, oh, when is it going to get easier? When you die.